Hello and welcome to the Abhivachan series in English in collaboration with Atlantic Films. We have been reading Ruskin Bond stories. As most of us know that Ruskin Bond has been writing stories about Indian characters, about places in India. So today's story is also about a tribal man, Baldev, and what happens to him in this story is quite interesting. Story's name is Tiger in the Tunnel. Now, as I've told you about the tiger, let's begin the story. Baldev walked confidently for. Being tribal himself, he was used to the jungle and its ways. Like his forefathers, he carried a small axe, fragile to look at, but deadly when in use. With it, in 3 or 4 swift strokes, he could cut down a tree as neatly as if it had been sawn, and he prided himself on his skill in wielding it against wild animals. He had killed a young boar with it once, and the family had feasted on it for almost 3 days. The axe head of pure steel, thin but ringing true like a bell, had been made by his father over a charcoal fire. This axe was part of himself, and wherever he went, be it to the local market 7 miles away or to a tribal dance, the axe was always in his hand. Occasionally, an official who had come to the station had offered him good money for the weapon, but Baldev had no intention of parting with it. The cutting curved sharply, and in the darkness, the black entrance to the tunnel loomed up menacingly. The signal light was out. Baldev set to work to haul the lamp down by its chain. If the oil had finished, he would have to return to the hut for more. But the mail train was due in 5 minutes. Time went. The train was late. Sitting huddled up, almost dozing, he soon forgot his surroundings and began to nod. And suddenly, a low grunt resounded from the top of the cutting. In a second, Baldev was awake, all his senses alert. Only a tiger could emit such a sound. There was no shelter for Baldev, but he grasped his axe firmly and tensed his body, trying to make out the direction from which the animal was approaching. For some time, there was only silence. Even the usual jungle noises seemed to have ceased altogether. Then a thump and the rattle of small stones announced that the tiger had sprung into the cutting. Baldev, listening as he had never listened before, wondered if it was making from the tunnel or the opposite direction. Opposite direction, the direction of the hut in which Tembu, his son, would be lying unprotected. He did not have to wonder for long. Before a minute had passed, he made out that the huge body of the tiger trotting steadily towards him. Its eyes shone a brilliant green in the light of the signal lamp. Flight was useless, for in the dark the tiger would be more sure-footed than Baldev and would be upon him from behind. Baldev stood with his back to the signal post, motionless, staring at the great brute moving rapidly towards him. The tiger, used to the ways of men, for it had been preying on them for years, came on fearlessly, and with a quick run and a snarl, struck out his right paw, expecting to bowl over this puny man who dared stand in the way. But Baldev, however, was ready. With a marvelously agile leap, he avoided the paw and brought his axe down on the animal's shoulder. The tiger gave a roar and attempted to close in. Again, Baldev drew his axe with his true aim, but to his horror, the beast swivered and the axe caught the tiger on the shoulder, almost severing the leg. To make matters worse, the axe remained stuck in the bone, and Baldev was left without a weapon. The tiger, roaring with pain, now sprang upon Baldev, bringing him down and then tearing at his broken body. It was all over in a few minutes. Baldev was conscious only of a searing pain down his back. And then there was blackness, and the night dozed in on him forever. And then, with a roar and a shower of sparks, the train entered the yawning tunnel. The noise in the confined space was deafening, but when the train came out into the open on the other side, silence returned once more to the forest and the tunnel. At the next station, the driver slowed down and stopped his train to water the engine. He got down to stretch his legs and decided to examine the headlamps. And he received the surprise for his life. Just above the cowcatcher lay the major portion of the tiger, cut in half by the engine. There was considerable excitement and conjecture at the station. But back at the cutting, there was no sound except for the sobs of the boy as he sat beside the body of his father. Tembu and his sister and mother were plunged in grief for 2 whole days. But life had to go on and a living had to be made. And all the responsibility now fell on Tembu. 3 nights later, he was at the cutting, lighting up the signal lamp for the overland mail. He sat down in the darkness to wait for the train and sang softly to himself. There was nothing to be afraid of. His father had killed the tiger. The forest gods were pleased. And besides, he had the axe with him, his father's axe, and he knew how to use it. So that was the tiger in the tunnel. And this time I've got the entire story for you. Just let me know how do you like it, and see you next time for another story. Bye.